Okay, kiddos, we are back. So last time we went through sort of the introduction part of chapter 1, and we're going to finish a few sort of introductory comments, and then we're going to start getting into the meat of the chapter. So where we are is we had reached a point where we said there is hope. It's a good thing, right? So we had been talking about all kinds of problems that the world is facing today, but we realized that now there is some hope. And part of it, so how do we, why are we saying there's hope? We are seeing some reduction in population growth, and we have been reducing pollution, although I think in recent times maybe we've kind of slipped a little bit on the pollution side of things, but that seems to be resolving itself. So in the past 25 years, the worldwide population growth has been reduced from having on average six kids per couple down to 2.6. Now that's still on an upward trajectory because we had said, what is zero population growth? It's about 2.1 because there is some infant mortality. So two people have two children, the parents die and they're replaced by the two children. So basically right around 2 is where we want to be if we don't want to keep increasing the world population. There are some good points about healthcare, and certainly in the developed world, we know how to control most infectious diseases. Now we're in COVID right now, and so viruses are a whole new thing that have been, for maybe 20 years, they're becoming more and more of an issue. Why do I bring up viruses? It's because bacterial infections you can treat with antibiotics. But when we start talking about viruses, the first really modern day major virus would have been AIDS, and we're, through public, by getting the word out, how to protect yourself from AIDS, and we do have some treatments for AIDS, so we are making some progress there. We've had periodic outbreaks of Ebola. It's a really horrible virus, and then we've had COVID and all, but with these horrible viral epidemics set aside, otherwise we've been doing a better job at controlling infectious diseases, and as a result, life expectancy is increasing. With regards to energy, the technology behind solar panels is just getting better and better. They're becoming more and more efficient and less expensive. Wind power, there are various locations, even not far from here, where you can see wind farms in areas where you have a lot of wind. And there are some negatives, downsides to wind. They do kill birds, even though those big blades don't look like they're moving that fast. The blades are 105 feet long, each one. And so even though it doesn't look like it's moving that fast, at the tip they're going about 100 miles an hour. So there is some bird death from that. But in balance, it's a much less destructive kind of technology. And then there are various types of turbines that can be used to kind of like they use on rivers and dams, but now they're harnessing the energy in waves or in changing of the tides. We had said at the very beginning of this chapter, we had talked about Apo Islanders, and we had said they're starting to address the problems associated with their fisheries, and we had said that they're basically their main source of protein is fish, and they figured out that they need to protect some of the habitat so that you have a nursery ground so that the big fish that are in that area aren't harassed and they can have babies, and what happens is it repopulates the area where you are fishing. And so we're doing a better job in trying to regulate the fisheries, although it is a very hard thing to regulate because we have what they call the problem of the commons. There is no incentive to not over-harvest if everyone is going out after a common resource, because the fisherman says, well, if I don't take it, I see Joe on my radar, on my fishing boat. I can see that he's coming, and if I don't catch these fish, Joe's going to do it. And so this is a problem that has to be overcome. But we are getting a little bit better with the fisheries. We're shifting somewhat to aquaculture. Again, we have some pollution issues with aquaculture, but things are getting better. Forest, conservation of forest. We are protecting forest land. Deforestation is slowing in both Asia and in Brazil. The tropical rainforests have been, again, being cleared. Now, my data that I'm quoting from is old. I think Brazil has slipped a little bit, and they've been exploiting the rainforest there, so perhaps they're not doing such a good job right now again. So maybe that's not a good example. Worldwide, we have a lot of protected forest. There's 100,000 parks worldwide. 20 million square kilometers, that's about 13% of the Earth's land surface. Again, these numbers can be a little bit misleading. One of the coolest things I ever saw was when I was overflying Greenland. It's a giant island, right? And we were flying over it, and you could see all these icebergs breaking off of the continent there, or this giant island. And then nothing, just snow everywhere. Well, that's a park. A large part of that is a park. So, I mean, is that beneficial? There isn't a whole lot of life there, but anyway, so we do have places like, desert areas and so forth. But for the most part, we do have protected lands. We do have some problems to overcome with regards to humans. 1/5 of the world population still lives in poverty with an income of less than $1 a day. What? That's really poor. That's really poor. But we are realizing, again, that the developed world, us, needs to help out the undeveloped or developing world. Why? Because of unrest. If we don't, we suffer from it because these people are starving and they're going to be desperate. So there is and has been a move to try and help out some of these countries. There is a cost to affluence, like you and I. So if we look at the affluent, that would be the developed countries like the US, Western Europe, Japan. The developed countries have 5% of the population, but they utilize 25% of the resources that are globally available. So how do we start to get a handle on that? We need to keep this idea of sustainability right there at the forefront. And what did we say sustainability is? Not everyone at once. Yeah? I don't hear you. Okay, I'll tell you again. Sustainability is meeting the needs of today without compromising the needs of those to come later. future generations. So, so when we look at the human condition, and we look at the world, here we are, I'm on probably the 12th slide, is it? I don't know. Anyway, whatever slide I'm on, it's the last one on this page. This one here with the map. What you see is how much money people make in the various locations in the world. And you might wonder, at what point do sociologists and people who study this kind of thing, do we say your income will shorten your lifespan? Below what level does income shorten your lifespan? And you might be surprised to hear how low that is. $4,000 a year. Now, I don't want to be trying to survive on $4,100 a year, I can tell you. But in terms of the work and the research that's been done, if you are from a region of the world where people make less than $4,000 a year per capita, it shortens the lifespan in those areas. It's the benchmark value. Now, what's interesting is that it ends up, there are a lot of places where people, are in that bad category, that, 4,000 or what lower category, and yet they have a lot of what is really valuable resources available to them, but it's not really exploited. And so what I'm talking about is we have this picture of this little girl with a parrot, and it says that indigenous people are guardians to much of the world's biodiversity. So biodiversity is important to us for everything from medicine to different kinds of food. I mean, if you think about what you eat, you probably eat a fairly limited diet in terms of what's edible out there. So even though you're not eating ants, they're edible. And maybe at some point we'll be at a position where we need to eat some of these things that we don't normally take advantage of. And there's a country that has been very successful in turning themselves around from the 4,000, the really undeveloped country, to a very prosperous country by taking advantage of their natural resources. And it's Costa Rica. And if you know anything, if you're into travel at all, you know that Costa Rica is one of the top ecotourism countries. And so that's one way out of all of this. All right, I'm gonna stop right here, and I'll be right back. But we're gonna start talking about science itself. And so, because this is a class about environmental science, and so we're going to talk about the various ways that science operates. All right, I'll be right back.